2 of Tuttle Talk. I'm Megan Tuttle, president for NEA New Hampshire. And before we start, I always like to say thank you to everything you are doing. You are just killing it out there. You probably don't feel like it, but you are. The kids appreciate it. The parents definitely, I know, are appreciating it. And just everything you're doing, thank you. This talk is recorded, just to let you know. And because we have so many people that have signed up for tonight, and it's the largest one so far, I can't see all the screens. And so if you do have anything to comment on, just put it into the chat box if you could. We keep all the chats and then we go back through them at the end. So if there are things we didn't get to or things we couldn't get to, we'll always get back in touch with you or send you to the right person. So please feel free at any point to just throw some things in the chat box. So tonight, I think, was probably a pretty hot topic. There is a commission that was started, or a task force, by the Department of Education and the governor. And what this commission is to look at the redesign and the reopening of schools. So they sent out emails and made phone calls to different people to say, hey, do you want to be on this group? So I got a call from the commissioner of education, my buddy, and asked if I wanted to be on this task force. So I said, great, you know, he's going to have our, hold on, I'll find one of my kids to turn the TV down. Hey, Brett. Let me text him. So there was I got a call and said, would you like to be on it? So I said, yeah, that would be perfect. And then we got a link to the first meeting. So there's a task force and work groups. I'm sorry. I just have to text my son upstairs. Okay, so we got the link to the work groups and the task force. Well, come to find out, I am on a work group, which really isn't much of anything when you think about it. There's 6 work groups, and they're split into things like instruction, curriculum, different things like that. The one that I'm on is for the heads of all the associations. And so when we met last week as a task force, there was over 1,000 people on the call. They were looking for public input, yet only the people on the official task force were the ones that were allowed to speak. And so we went through this, and I had my first work group meeting yesterday, maybe. I can't even remember. Today's Tuesday, so I think it was yesterday. And really all that work group did was look at suggestions for questions for a survey that was going to go out. They really didn't ask our opinion on too much. So when we got this, they said, you know, we're going to close this at the end of business today. And I spoke up and said, well, I'm representing 17,000 educators across New Hampshire, and I don't think their voice is being heard. We have representation of educators on the other work groups, but they liken this to the safety task force the governor had, where we couldn't talk about guns in schools. So we were going to talk about safety, but we weren't going to talk about one aspect of keeping schools safe. So I sent an email out this morning to all the members, and I got phenomenal responses. I got over 100 emails back, you know, typed out, well thought out emails. I took them all off. George has them all. We're actually going to be going through. I will still take things, Gail, anytime. We're going to be going through them all. The common threads that are coming out of the surveys or the answers that I've read really is focusing on safety. There are a lot of people concerned about if they're immune compromised or they're going home to immune compromised spouses, families, children, whatever. Are the schools actually going to be safe? And so that's, you know, our primary concern right now. We have to ask, why are we looking to reopen schools? What is the purpose of it? What has changed so drastically since we closed them in March that we feel it's okay to look at them and to reopen them in September or August? So that was one of them. Another one was talking about, you know, teacher educator burnout, because if we're looking at hybrid models, which the commissioner is looking at, how is that going to work? What's going to happen if you have kids coming in, you know, on A and B days, C and D days, you have another group coming in, and maybe a different group on, you know, Fridays? How is that going to look like for teaching? Who's doing remote instruction on the days that you're home? Who's in the classroom doing that? What are paras doing? What are any of the ESP groups doing? Are we going to have to increase our bus routes, our transportation? What's going to happen with food and food insecurities for those kids that we know that we feed every day? And so a lot of this I don't think has been thought out truly been thought out by the commissioner. And so it's our job, it's my job to make sure that we're heard. We are the professionals in this education. We know what we're doing. You're doing this every single day, and we need to make sure that our voices are heard. There's a lot of questions about wearing masks and, is there enough hand washing stations? Because if you think about it, not every classroom has their own sink, right? Especially as you get into the upper grades. And so how are we going seeing the cat? How are we going to be working with that? In a lot of the lower grades, people were very frank and they were very honest about their concerns, which I appreciate. It was about and I hate to say it this way, but about the nose pickers wearing the masks, and about the kindergartners. How do you separate them 6 feet apart? You can't do that. It's just not logistically the right thing to do. So there was a lot in there about mental health and educator mental health and how are we going to work for that. And so I got some amazing questions and some amazing responses that we're still sorting through to get everything out, but we are going to get the information to them, I promise you. So one of the things that we did was we're looking at, if we're going to be into looking at reopening schools, we need to make sure that we're leading a conversation on it. So NEA New Hampshire is going to be doing whatever we're going to be doing no matter what. So whether our voice on the work group or the task force is as loud as I think it should be, which I don't think it is, NEA New Hampshire is still going forward and we're still getting the message out that this is what we need to be doing. AFT has put out bathrooms. Again, that's another big thing. Do we even have enough bathrooms, and how are you going to get all the kids to go 6 feet apart? These are all things we're going to be incorporated as I look down at the chat box. We're looking at kind of 5 different things. If NEA speak, 5 different kind of silos that'll all come together before schools can reopen. So AFT put out some guidance earlier, and we're educators. We don't make everything up on our own, right? We borrow from people. We take ideas, we make them into our own. And so they had some really good things on what had to be done before schools could reopen. So we're looking at all those, and our staff is looking at those. And these have to be the focus, because the primary, besides safety and the basics like that, we have the primary concern of working rights as well. We're a union. We're still fighting for the working rights. And if you're doing 2 different jobs at once, why should you be doing twice the work getting the same pay? And so we need to be looking at all of that and keeping the CBAs still intact and doing that sort of stuff as well. So the first one, I don't know if George can put the slide up. Kind of when we look at reopening schools, we're looking at maintaining that physical distance until the number of new cases declines for at least 14 consecutive days. Those are recommendations that are coming out from powers higher than me. Maintaining physical distancing is working. We need to look at putting in place the infrastructure and resources so that we can test, trace, and isolate new cases. One of the emails I got today said that they would need 26 staff at their school alone just to test everybody before they came into schools. When you look at the testing, what's going to happen if someone has a fever? What happens to, and I think we've all done this at some point, or we know people who have done this, you Motrin up the kid before they go to school so that you can get a couple hours out of work before you're going to get that phone call from the nurse saying, hi, this is Tuttle, this is the nurse at Beaver Meadow. Brycey's not feeling too well. And you're like, oh, the Motrin just wore off. How is that going to affect any of the temperatures or things like that going into school? What are those kids going to do if they're home? Are you going to be expected to have remote teaching for them at home? We need to have the public health tools that's going to prevent the virus spread, but we need to align them with education strategies to meet the needs of the students. This is just huge. If we're not educating the kids the best way possible, why are we back in the schools? If we're not doing it safely, what are we doing back in the schools? There was a case, I think it was in France today, that 70 kids just got identified with COVID, with the virus, and they had to reclose the schools. They had just reopened schools. 70 kids have it now, and they just had to reclose them. So, our commissioner is looking to Europe for all these models. It just, it's crazy. And Misty, that's exactly right. The asymptomatic kids, we don't even know who they are. So what are we going to do at that point, right? Involving workers, union, parents, and communities in the planning. We're the education professionals when it comes when it comes to teaching and everything like that and working with the kids. But if the parents aren't comfortable sending their kids to school, that means nothing for us. If they're not comfortable sending them, we're going to be there with nobody else. And so we need to involve them as we work through this. And the union obviously is so important because we need to be looking at all the working rights and the working conditions and everything with that. We need to invest in recovery. The biggest concern I have is that the parental voice of saying, I need to get back to work, is going to make our schools into daycares. And I'm not underestimating what the economic need is, because there's a need out there. People have to get back to work. And this is where we get stuck. I totally agree with this, but at the same time, we know that we're there to teach the children and to educate them, not to be a daycare center. There was just a question, the medical conditions over 60, 65. We have over 7,000 members of NEA New Hampshire that are over the age of 50, and that does not include any of the retirees. Okay, so we have over 7,000 over the age of 50. I ran the numbers. Those numbers concern me. I need to make sure that they're safe. And all these kids that we have, being raised by their grandparents for various reasons, what if they're going home, and what's going to happen to the grandparents if they bring something home? If the parents don't feel safe sending their kids to school, whose responsibility is it? It's this hybrid really scares me. Should it be an all or nothing? Because if we're going to be responsible for both, should they be responsible for homeschooling their kids if they choose not to send them on their own? There's a lot of concerns. And so the task force, I'm just looking at the comments as they're coming up. The task force did have some students on it, but you say there's no public school students. I believe you. I don't know who the students are that are on the task force. There were 5, I think. But I know that the one that was on there last week on the meeting was from the Academy of Science and Design in Nashua, which is the commissioner's favorite school. And he was talking about the lack of motivation. So if we have a charter school student at, a very high performing charter school, and it's a great school, but they're talking about the lack of motivation, what's going on with all our other kids, what's going on with all the kids that aren't showing up to the Google chats, they're not doing any of the work, they're not coming to the Google Hangouts or the Zoom meetings. For them, it's just easier not to show up and not to do the work. What are we doing about those kids? I know we're fighting for them and we're trying to include them, but they're not always being captured. My speaker is not working. I don't know where my speaker is. Is that working? Can anybody hear me?
You're breaking up every now and then. There's nothing on your mic, right?
Where's my, I don't think so. I don't have anything on my computer. I'll just keep trying, I guess. Let me try unplugging it. Maybe it's done. Oh, okay. I'll just unplug it. So we need to look at special ed. We need to look at, everything at this point. There's nothing that is not going to be looked at. So that being said, we have a couple questions for everybody. These are really easy. If you've ever done a Kahoots thing with your kids or ever participated in it, we have a quick poll. We have 6 questions we want to ask you. So you're going to see this online. First question, has your school district defined and or enacted protocols and procedures for the safe return of students and staff? This was all anonymous. It just gives us a percentage. So just click yes or no and then submit. I'll give you about 30 seconds to answer. If you don't know, I'll take that. You don't have to answer if you don't know, and I'll look at those numbers as don't know.
Yeah.
Thanks. So about 10 more seconds, and then we'll close it. Okay, let's close it. And what did we get for that, George? Okay, interesting. And I know some people are still in the beginning phases of things like this, so that's okay, but this is good. Okay, poll number 2. Is it up? Do you feel confident that staff and students would be safe if schools were to reopen now?
That looks like the same
Is
poll.
that the same poll?
Yeah.
Megan, I'm seeing the first one. Yeah.
Hang on. What-
Yeah. Hold on. This is new to us. We're trying this out.
There we go.
We love technology. There we go. Okay, so we'll take about 10 seconds. Okay, let's close it, George. What do we got? Ah, wow, overwhelmingly no. Very interesting. Poll number 3, it's on resources. Does your school district have the resources to provide the necessary PPE, regular testing, and tracking required to assure the safety of students and staff? I think I can answer this, but we'll see what people have. Okay, about 5 more seconds. And we'll close it. Okay. A little more of don't know than I thought, but that's still pretty much what I thought for no. Okay, 3 more questions. Special education. Has your school district created a safe return plan that takes into consideration the needs of special education students? I didn't want to put hell no up there, guys. I like the response. Okay, about 5 more seconds. And we'll close it. George? Okay, so some are being worked on currently, so that's good. That's encouraging, actually. Poll 5, communication. Has your school district reach out to you, parents, and other community members to communicate a safe reopening plan? Things are being worked on, which is good to hear. I mean, you guys should be involved in everything that's being worked on. And if you're not, you need to talk to your UniServe director to make sure you are. Okay, about 5 more seconds. And we'll close it. Okay, Linda Johnson, you need to talk to your UniServe director to make sure that you guys are involved in it. Okay, and last question, imperative. Do you believe it's imperative your school district do these things before reopening schools? Lisa, that's good that they're meeting Friday. Okay, about 5 more seconds. Linda, that's good. And we're, okay, let's close it. Okay, so I mean, basically everything we're asking is everything we're getting, and I just wanted to just try out the polls and see what's happening. But obviously we can't go back in unless the schools are safe, and that's really what it comes down to. I had a call with Senator Shaheen's office today, and with Senator Shaheen was on it. And we talked a lot about what the federal government can do to help the schools in New Hampshire to reopen. There was a lot of talk about technology and making sure that all the students and all the educators, and that includes ESP, that includes teachers, that includes anyone else who has contact with the students, have the training on Google or whatever platform they're using and clear directions on what they need to be doing. But along with the devices, they also need to have the bandwidth and connectivity. And that's sometimes where the problem comes in, is you might have internet at home and you might have a device, but you need to make sure, or we need to make sure that that connectivity is there and the bandwidth is there. And so that was something that we talked about with Senator Shaheen. She said she's on a bill right now that is $4 billion to beef up different internet services with providers so that all of this can be done. Because more likely than not, we're going to be back in the same position at some point next year, doing some sort of remote learning if we get a second surge. Internet stipends. I'm seeing a couple things. I'm just going to jump to the chat box real quick. Union presidents are not included in the meetings and discussion of the reopening. Kathy, you need to let Jason Faria know and demand that they're part of it. We need to be at the table for these reopening, especially in any district, whether it's large or small. We need to be at the table because this affects you. It affects the children. I know it affects administrators, but you guys are the ones on the ground level doing the work with them. So we need to be at the table. Whatever your job in the school is, you need to be there. A computer that's not 9 years old. There is money in the CARES Act that was initially granted. The first stimulus bill that came out, there was money in there. And there's always money through Title 4A. You ask for Title 4A funds, and that's money that can be used to get devices for students and educators. There's no reason, one, you have to be using your own devices. That is ridiculous at this day and age. There's privacy concerns. There's all these other concerns. And something else we have to talk to the commissioner about is we really need a code of conduct if we're going to do remote learning, remote instruction, remote teaching, because the current code of conduct, when we have educators using their own devices, is a piece of BS. I'm sorry, but it is. You can't be held accountable to the current code of conduct if you're being told that you have to use your own device. He doesn't understand that, and that's a problem. So anyway, we need to fix that. But in the first stimulus bill, there was money through the CARES Act. In this next one that's coming out, Senator Shaheen has assured us that there's money there. So we need to be fighting for that. Jennifer Chambers, you need to be logging those 12 hours a day because that can all be included as part of your professional development. If they try to tell you that it can't be, that's some more stuff that we need to talk about. I saw a couple other things in here I just want to talk about. Hybrid model, preferential treatment to go to subjects. This is where, I think the commissioner doesn't truly have an understanding of what a public school looks like, because it's easy to say you can teach math and you can teach literature or you could teach social studies. What about chorus? What about drama? What about music? What about band? What about art? There was one email I got today. They were saying they only spend 20 cents per student for art supplies in the school. Not all kids have access to art supplies at home. What are we doing about that? So, I mean, there's a lot of inequity just among the content areas, let alone the grade levels. Elementary school versus high school. You could have 20 kids, 25 kids in elementary school versus 150 you might have in your classes in high school. So even those things we have to think about. The hurdle is busing. That's a huge thing. How do you safely socially distance kids on a bus? I used to take my 8th graders to DC every year. They were not socially distant, okay? And that was down to DC. I can't imagine on an actual school bus. At the school bus stop, how do you socially distance them? We need to be looking at the cleaning supplies. We need to be looking at Goffstown and there's another district. I can't remember. They have hazard pay for the custodians right now because they're going in and doing the cleaning. We should be looking at that for the food service workers right now that are in the schools. You need to talk to your UNISERV directors about this, because if they're in the schools doing this work, they should be getting hazard pay. They're frontline workers. That's without a doubt, they are on the front line. And so we need to be looking at negotiating that as well. Sorry guys, I'm seeing a lot of things coming in. They're all amazing, amazing comments. I think I'm gonna get a Zoom meeting with all the presidents in the state, the local presidents, and talk to them about the importance of this. You like that, Lisa? I'm seeing some nods from some presidents. Okay, George, can you just make a note of that before I forget? Thank you. Because I think we're going to be hearing some more. I'd like to hear what's going on in the locals as they're starting these plans. And if it's not working, I want to make sure that it is getting done. So if you're a local president, be looking out for that. Let's see, woodworking, tech center classes. The CTE is represented on the task force, or on the work group. But again, I mean, that one, I don't even know what to do with that, to be quite honest. I am so open for solutions in that, because a lot of those classes, you need the hands-on. And in order to graduate, you need to have that hands-on experience. And so we are, completely open to any solutions people have. I'm not going to sit here and say I have all the solutions. I probably have a lot more questions. ESY. So Yeah, that information was supposed to be out, the guidelines, mid-May from the commissioner and from HHS. I have another commissioner's call tomorrow that I'm on, and hopefully he says something. But as of this point, there still haven't been any guidelines for ESY. But he wants to jump ahead and look at next year. Athletics and coaching staff, exactly. I know that the middle school my kids are in, they did get we did get signups for fall sports, but I don't know what they're planning, Tara. So I don't even know what to say about that, because I'm not sure how they could socially distance. A lot of that. Lunchrooms, recess, it's going to be a madhouse. In the middle schools where I taught, it was, just passing times in the hallway. That was in itself a hazardous situation. So trying to socially distance with that, I can't even imagine. I have 28 new messages, but I think Brenda had a hand up. Where is Brenda? Do you have your hand up, Brenda? Unmute yourself and chat if you need to. Brenda, no? Okay, I'll keep going through some of these, and if I see her. Technology, yes, always a big one. We also need to talk about the long-term health effects of exposure to cleaning products. I don't know what's in them all, to tell you the truth. I don't know. Mark, can you enlighten me on any of that? Is Mark on here that I saw? Okay. We're going to look into that. I know that there's a lot of information out there from the CDC and other things. So we're looking into that. I will talk real quick, because I know we're getting short on time, and I want people to be able to talk. I'm on the national think tank through NEA, along with Don, and that's why I invited him tonight, looking at reopening schools there as well. And so they have an ed communities for the group that we're in, and they have some amazing resources they're putting on. So as soon as I can get some of those resources, we're going to put some on the NEA New Hampshire website as well, because nationally we're looking about this. So I think I could go on and on literally about all of these, the messages in the chat box. So I'm going to kind of open it up for you. Let me just answer this one quick. The union have a position on whether or not you should have the right to record Google Meets, Zoom meetings with students. Yeah, that's a legal question that we can check with our legal department on. That's a great question. Returning in September, 90-degree days, no AC, not being able to use a fan. Yeah, there's no moving air, and that makes your conditions pretty ripe for the germs to be spread. The other thing we were talking about today too that I think is really interesting is if you're a chorus or band, or it could really be any class, but the distance the particles from your mouth go when you speak. And they were talking especially about loud voices. I don't know if anyone's been reading the research on this, just the length that they can go. I yell just because I was a middle school teacher and I'm a mom of 3 boys, so that's going to get anybody to yell. But if any of you in the classrooms, the distance that your particles can go, it's really interesting. So that's something else I think we need to be looking at. More nurses needed. Yes, we need a lot of everything right now. I'm going to open this up, class sizes, yep. I'm going to open this up to people if they want to say anything. Student trauma, family engagement, yes, of course, and mental health of educators. Half-day kindergarten, where not everybody has it. We go on play-based kindergarten, and we're not going to be able to do that. We will get that page updated, Cindy. Okay, so anyone that wants to speak, we have a lot of issues to work through here and a lot of problems. The one thing I can tell you is we will get through this, and we're going to do what's best for the members. So I'll open it up now. I just keep talking. Anyone want to say anything?
I guess I'll ask a quick question. You said
Sure.
A UNICEF director. I don't really know what that is or what mine would be.
Okay. Do you mind telling me where you teach? Or
Farmington.
or you're an educator? Sorry, I shouldn't assume teach.
Farmington.
Farmington. Okay, so you are with Peter Miller. So the state is divided into 9 regions, and each region has their own UNISERV director, and that person is the one who will go to you to bargaining for your contract. They answer questions you might have. The local leader is usually in contact with them the most, but they're your first go-to usually for any questions that you might have about anything. If you want to, I'm going to put my email in the box real quick. If you want to email me your email, I can be back in touch with you about this, but I think it's going to be Peter Miller, and they really are there for any questions you have. I'm seeing Lisa real quick just because she's in front of me. Lisa Dillingham is from Dover, and she's the president over there. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about what the UNISERV director helps you with, what they can do for you, just being an experienced president. I know you're in touch with yours a lot.
Oh, sure. My phone rings as soon as I get on. Malin, go let daddy in. Sorry. Husband's home from work. We have a very strict routine about when he comes home from work. So we're implementing that right now. Anyway, so, I mean, right now, Peter Miller, we do have, our UNISERV director is hosting weekly Zoom meetings and just kind of keeping updated information about, you know, where we are, what our progress is. I will say he's been a huge help. This with the online and remote learning, we've had 4 MOUs that we've written that to, you know, help with our contract and in maintaining, you know, maintaining our contract in this unique situation. So helping us work with that. You know, obviously we have our para union just had their contract negotiated and agreed upon. It's going to city council next. So there's a lot of different ways that the UNISERV director is helping us, not only now, but obviously at all times during our year. I don't know if you want anything else.
I think that's great. Does that help? Was it Angela that was asking the question, I think?
Yeah, I didn't realize that he was called the UNISERV director.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, Megan, ours is Karen, and she's been phenomenal as well. We've got 2 MOUs, and like, because I was on with Senator Shaheen today, and I definitely want her to know that, you know, is I was glad she brought up the technology piece, and she's got that other piece that's, you know, going into legislation. I fought the fight. I tried, and I talked to, you know, you here on this, you know, several weeks ago about the MOU. And I was really actually hopeful that we could get that through. You know, so many of my members had reached out to me, and their spouses had been, you know, laid off or on unemployment. So they took a drastic decrease in their pay. And yet when I took that MOU with the $100 for every 30 days to help defer the cost of our internet use, and we are using our personal cell phones, they just shut me down so hard. I mean, I left, and I mean, at one point Karen was still trying to talk, and I said, Karen, they're packing up, honey. I'm closing my computer down and we're leaving. We're done, because I was there live and everybody else was via Zoom. It was, I've never felt that put down.
Right.
And it was just, it was very hard to get over that feeling. I mean, I've had conversation with my superintendent since, nothing on that account, but I just feel that the teachers in this state or any state should get compensation. If we were in any other profession and we were working for home, our employer would be providing our internet. We would not be using our home internet. And here we're expected, oh, well, you have it, just use it. Well, that's not fair. I mean, my printer's running constantly. Yep. It's just, it's not right to
no, agreed. Right. So Jen is the president in Franklin. And if you're wondering what she's talking about, they had a memorandum of understanding that they brought to their district to get $100 reimbursed every month for internet. Yep. And for that, for using everything at home, and then it was turned down. Now, I see that as definitely a bad thing, but I see it as a stepping stone because we now have language. Karen has drafted language on how this can be implemented in other districts. And what I'm looking at is, you know, we need to learn from this and go forward with it in the sense that we're 17,000 strong in New Hampshire. If they can't turn down everybody. And this is our time to make a stink. This is our time to say, you know what? We can't be using our own personal devices. And there is money, by the way, in the CARES Act to get reimbursed for that. So for the district to say no, there's no reason for it. So I know that we've been talking about that with other groups as well. So I have Jen Chambers and Lauren, I think, and Kearsarge is paying $100 lump sum. Okay, so we have language out there. But Jen Chambers, where are you?
Hey, Megan, first of all, thank you for everything you do. It's an enormous amount of work and a lot of hours, so thank you so much. And what I wanted to say is I think, and my internet's terrible, so sorry if I cut out, but I think the faster decisions can be made, the better for and I know that this isn't a fast decision thing necessarily, but because the fall is so soon, I even though I desperately want to be back, even if I'm teaching chorus in a field, the knowledge of what's happening in the fall is going to be huge as far as budgeting, and there's massive implications that start in the next couple of weeks. So I would urge all stakeholders to move quickly. And if that means that we have to be remote teaching, at least we can make decisions to support our staff and our students in a timely fashion rather than finding out like August 30th. No, just kidding, we're remote.
No, completely understood, Jen. Thank you. I think that's a great point. The recommendations have to go to the governor by June 30th. And, you know, I think we just need, that's where our voice comes in and that's why it was kind of urgent to get everything done. We need to have this voice so that we can go forward, get things out to the public. And if that means we're coming up with our own plans, we're coming up with our plans and we can get those out too. But you have an excellent point that it has to be done now. I have Lauren, Loren.
Hi. Thanks for hosting. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. Thanks for hosting this. I was wondering, I apologize if this came up in I missed the first 8 minutes or so of the call. But the language around wanting to have various resources such as compensation for home internet use, and also to have membership on safe return to school planning committees, whatever they're being called in the various areas. Is that all part of, our lawyer brought up the topic of impact bargaining. Is this all part of impact bargaining? And is that what I'm just not really clear what impact bargaining is and when to use that language. And I was wondering if you could explain that a little.
So it could be part of it. Some districts are inviting them to invite the locals to be part of it. Others are saying you have to bargain that. And so any changes in working conditions would have to be bargained. Where are you an educator at?
I'm at Keene State College, so we're like the weird like higher ed clump in this. But I'm also, I think I'm not sure, and I'm not sure how many other people are on the call from like the other NEA unions that are in Keene. So I'm trying to just pay attention more broadly as well.
Yeah, what I can do is have you been in touch with Rachel Hawkinson?
Yeah, Rachel brought up impact bargaining at our meeting last week, but it was the first time we heard that phrase. Okay. And so I just like, and I don't think, like, for example, a local high school, the president for that NEA union has heard about it. Nobody else has been talking about this in Keene. So
okay, so I actually have, hold on 1 minute. I'm going to ask Lori Hayes, who's one of our UNISERV directors. I know she's on the call, and I'm going to ask if she can unmute herself and just let her give you a much better description than I can. Lori, where are you?
I'm here. So the question is, what is impact bargaining?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like what does that mean, and
Yeah.
when did you do it?
So there is mandatory bargaining, permissive bargaining, and impact and effect negotiations or bargaining as well. I'm not going to talk about mandatory or permissive. I'm going to talk about impact. Impact usually occurs when management has made a policy decision or another decision that is well within management's rights to make. For example, they've made a decision that, let's say, that they are going to change the way you educate students, like what we're doing now. So right now we're all involved in remote teaching or remote instruction. That is a management decision to make. The school board determines how to make that decision. But we have a right to do impact and effect negotiations about that. And what that means is you have a right to ask, how does this impact me? What happens when I do this? How can I make sure that when I do this, I'm protected in my job responsibilities? There may be changes to your job responsibilities. Those are more than impact and effect negotiations. But impact and effect negotiations help you to go in and negotiate the impact to the change that this policy decision has made about your job. Does that make sense?
It does. Like, Sue, is that something we would get in writing, like kind of like an MOU between us and management?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I wasn't completely familiar with exactly what they have requested of you, but for example, I'm getting a lot of questions.
Requested anything.
Okay. You were going to say, Lauren?
Well, they haven't, it's not that we haven't been asked to do impact bargaining. It's that Rachel, our lawyer, said that, like, she kind of put that on the table as an option that we could engage in impact bargaining. And so it's just kind of a new thing. It's a new phrase to me, and I don't think anybody in our e-board's history has ever done that. So I was wondering, I didn't even know there were 3 kinds of bargaining. So that's super helpful.
Sure, Rachel certainly could be very helpful with you on that. But you know, the impact and effect negotiations, I know that there have been some question in Keene about furloughs. So the furloughs is certainly a decision that management can make. But you have a right to go in and talk about how that impacts me, what that means to me. If I have to be furloughed, what days am I furloughed? How am I going to pay my bills when I am furloughed? You know, how does this affect my health insurance? What about my benefits? Can I use a sick day instead of being furloughed? Those kind of questions are questions that you can ask, which are involved with impact and effect negotiations.
Okay, all right. Thank
So
you.
Lauren, what we can do is we'll touch base with Rachel as well.
Absolutely.
And just chat with her about the conversation and have her get back in touch with you. Will that work?
And one other just related question, that would be very helpful, but so I also was wondering if there was sort of any kind of one statement from NIA New Hampshire about requesting membership on those safe return to school committees, because not all areas are open to such union representation. So if there's no other way to get on those committees besides saying, like, actually, you know, we deserve a spot at the table, do we have any language around that? And who would I ask for that?
That would be also for Rachel. I mean, we're encouraging everybody to get onto those committees. Some are doing it easier than others, but yeah, be in touch with Rachel on that, and she's the one who could help you through and guide you through that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I think I had Lisa Dillingham and then Misty.
So my question was, Megan, is I know that, you know, AFT has put out their version of a return to schools plan per se. Where is NEA's plan? Do we have one? Are we working on one? And I asked that only because from what I understand so far is we don't yet have one. So whose plan should we be looking at? Is AFTs a good plan to be using in the interim while our planning in our schools has already begun?
Yeah.
I've passed on AFT's plan because I thought, based on a couple that I've already seen, it's one of the better ones out there. So what do you suggest in terms of right now, because NEA doesn't yet have one?
So NEA, we're run a little bit different than AFT. We're looking at it. I'm looking at AFTs. I'm looking at states that have already started this. And as I said earlier, NEA has their own work group that we're working on it. Nothing has come out specific from NEA yet. What I would say is at this point in time, you need to do what's good for Dover. NEA today, more ways to win. I can't see what that is. We're going to be coming up with a document on going back to school, and that's something that's going to come out of this task force. But I think, what we're pretty much promoting at this point in general, there's nothing official out there. It's what's going to work for everybody. The commissioner over and over has said that, he doesn't think we're really local control. And Drew Klein, the chair of the Board of Education for New Hampshire, actually said that we're not a local control state. He has said more times in the past 2 weeks that we are local control, and he will not make one recommendation for the state that everything's going to be district by district. That's going to come into some problems just in terms of if you teach in Dover or you are, your job is in Dover, but you live in Wakefield, how's that going to affect your personal life if you have kids in different districts or, things like that. I don't have anything set yet, Lisa. All I can say is use all the resources that are out there because that's what we're all doing and trying to collect everything together.
Right, and that's what I just
wanted
wanted
to answer right now. I'm sorry.
Like I said, just kind of ask the question because, and I already kind of knew that answer, but just to put it out there that we don't have something, but some resources are better than others.
They are.
And that maybe there is a way to at least say, here are some really good ones that we've seen so far, just so that those of us who are, able to sit at the table and we can at least look at these resources because, I passed along some, like I said, some to our administration who had not seen those particular resources before. So if there are some good ones out there, maybe we could get some feedback or at least get some suggestions on, hey, you may want to take a look at these.
Of course. So what we can do is, I know there's a bunch out there. What we need to do is I will work with George to get those put online on NEA New Hampshire's website. And then you can start to look through things that you think are going to work for your work right now. And as we get more, we'll keep updating it. Yep. Misty.
Hi, Megan. Thank you.
You're welcome. How are you? Congratulations, by the way. If people don't know, Misty has been named the Krista McAuliffe sabbatical winner for next year. So she's actually taking, I don't want to say a year off school, but you're taking a year sabbatical to work on racial justice and social justice issues in New Hampshire. And I was on the interview committee that helped pick her, and she did an awesome, awesome job. I'm so excited that she's able to do this for New Hampshire. Okay, you can go now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You're so sweet. And Lisa, it's interesting that you were talking about the various plans because my question is actually related to one of those plans. Somebody had slipped me the American Enterprise Institute's plan today, and not a big shocker, obviously. Their main goal was to get schools back open, right? Get everybody back in there, get everybody back to work. And I mean, their safety guidelines were pretty much what you'd expect, and it wasn't terrible. But one thing that did stand out to me is, when they talked about collective bargaining, they did say, this is going to be the teachers', chance to try to be more flexible and try to relax those bargaining agreements so that we can really get the job done. And obviously it was of concern to me because one of the things they said is maybe they should relax, licensure and the ability to bring in students, that again, that misconception that like, oh, just throw anybody into the classroom and they can kind of do our job. They did it in the guise of, we're going to try to help the veteran teachers who might be medically fragile and they might not feel comfortable coming in. But if that's the case, then we're going to have to get all of these, not so skilled or trained people into the classroom. And I was just curious because you had mentioned in some of your communications that the commissioner might be going for a power grab to make some changes at this time. So how concerned do you think we need to be about those kinds of recommendations being taken seriously here in New Hampshire?
I think very concerned. Anything that the commissioner is promoting is a really good thing. It really scares me. He's trying to dismantle public education. I have no doubt about that. And how he's going to try and do this is he's using this as, oh, see, we've already been doing this. His favorite word is pivot. New Hampshire educators pivoted, right, on a weekend, and they're doing an amazing job and everything's great and there's no problems. No, that's not true. We know that there are problems. We know that there are things going wrong. I know you're doing a great job and you're working with what you have, but this is not perfect. This is a Band-Aid fix to a national problem that we didn't have any control over. He's completely using this as a way to, like you said, early retirement, get the educators out who he doesn't think should be there. He's already tried relaxing the licensure plans or the licensing requirements. He thinks that one of his earlier statements this year was that we needed to take all the nursing students and anybody who was 18 from any of the CTE programs and let them go work on the front lines because it would be volunteer. We don't have to pay them. Are you kidding me? So we're sacrificing the kids that we're teaching through these programs. We're putting them on the front line because it's volunteer because we don't have enough nurses at that point? No, that's not going to work. And so we have to be very concerned, Misty. And I think, this is where we as educators need to stand up and say, this is our profession. We're the professionals in this. We're the ones who know what we're doing. And so you need to listen to us. This is how it needs to happen. And we're 17,000 strong. Whatever your position in a school is, you are a valuable, crucial piece of an education to that child. And we need to be making sure that we're standing up and getting our message out. That can be through me. It can be through op-eds. It can be through letters to the editor. It can be through so many ways. I think what we're going to start doing is when the commissioner was first appointed commissioner, we had a tweeting little thing going on, and it was what do you do at Blue? Basically, I'm an educator. What do you do at Blue? And we tweeted out different things that people gave us every day, different things that they did in the classroom and different things they did in school. We're going to be using all of these over 100 emails that I got today to say, listen, this is what's going on. We're getting this out to the press. We're not going to let this die. I mean, this isn't going to be something, oh, okay, you took some time, great, I got some emails, yay. No, we're getting this out so people know what educators in New Hampshire think needs to happen. And once they start hearing from us, they need to hear constantly from us. We have to be that 800-pound gorilla in the room saying, we're the professionals, so listen to us. We're not going to go back to school. We're not going to reopen the schools just because the governor thinks the economy needs to get going. We're not a daycare. We're there to educate children. And so everything you guys are telling me is so crucial. It's so vital to that message to get out. If the message is we need to reopen because we're ready, great, we'll fight for that. If the message is we're not ready, then we're going to fight for that. I mean, that's legitimately what we need to do. So, Misty, I would be so worried about it. Have these conversations. I know we can't have the conversations at the dump like we used to have on Saturday mornings, because that's where a lot of things got talked about and a lot of contracts got negotiated at, going to the dump on Saturdays. But these are things we need to talk about everywhere we go. Let people know what you do. Let them see how proud you are. And if you're concerned, I understand if you don't want to say it publicly, let me know. I will say it. I have no problem saying any of this stuff out loud. I ran into Adam Sexton at the grocery store the other day, and he said, well, how's it going? I was like, not really so good. And I started telling him about what a sham I thought the task force was and the work groups, because they're just going to be, I think there's already a plan in their mind. And so he's, oh, really? Can we talk about this? Yep, call me anytime. I am more than happy to talk to people about this. So if you don't want to say something publicly, I get it. Let me know, and I will be that 800-pound gorilla. That's kind of my goal this year. Asthma rate, everything. Yes, there's so many concerns about this. And I mean, honestly, I take this very personal. I have 3 kids in school. My 3 babies are in school. I don't want them exposed to anything. None of you do. You all have kids that you know, whether they're your kids, your grandbabies, your nieces, your nephews, sisters, brothers, cousins, whatever. You don't want them exposed, and I don't want any of you exposed. You're the educators. Your lives, your health, everything is just as important. Do I think the task force is just a front? Yes. I absolutely think the task force is just a front to make it look like we had a say in this, because he's going to come back and say, well, we put NEA New Hampshire on it. And what I said on the call the other day was, you are not allowing me to let my 17,000 members have a voice, because you're ending the survey at 5 o'clock today. And then at some point, I finally got back, because no, you do not need to buy me a gorilla suit. Whoever said that, I just saw that we are not buying me a gorilla suit. Unless I show up at, maybe I'll show up at the fall instructional conference wearing one. That could be kind of funny. But my kids are laughing across the table. But when I finally came out, because the work group call was being recorded yesterday, I finally came out and said, thanks, Irv. At least a glass of wine. Yes, Mary. I finally came out in the task force, and I was a little passive aggressive, but I just said, I respectfully withdraw my request for you to hold the survey open for another day, because I understand you have a timeline to get the survey done in. And I know that the 17,000 members I represent, you really don't need to know. So I was a little passive aggressive. It is recorded. I can't take it back at this point. And if the fall conference is virtually, maybe I'll still wear a gorilla suit. Why not? I've done worse. So I think, I don't mind being that person. That's why I'm here, is to be that person. You are in the classrooms working with the kids every single day. You're in the schools. This is actually kind of fun for me, which is kind of weird. Dairy, it's also happening there. Let me chat with you, and we can, that just went really quick past, but whoever just wrote that from Dairy, get in touch with me and we will talk. The 14-day quarantine, it's crazy. I do have two really good sources. One was from, it was an article in the New York Times, and actually Ellen sent them to me. I don't know if she's on the call tonight. And there was another resource. We'll definitely get those two up as well, from a biologist and another doctor. So we'll get those up. So I don't know. This is such a big issue, and I'm not willing to risk anybody's lives on it. Nobody should have to. What needs to happen before you feel safe returning to school? For the survey, for me, keep emailing me stuff. I'll take it. The survey they're talking about, honestly, I didn't even write anything to them today, because there was no point. They're doing what they want to do no matter what. I'm taking all your information and I'm getting it out to everybody else in the world. That's my job. So keep writing to me. There's really, really no deadline at this point. And if you want to open up something for your kids, let's get a student voice on there. You know what? Ask. Hey guys, what do you think about this? Do it in the right way, of course. But to hear a student voice, I asked my 13-year-old today, what do you like about remote instruction? What do you like about, regular school? Well, there's less work on remote instruction, but I miss my friends. That's out of the mouth of a 13-year-old whose two parents are teachers. So, that's pretty, pretty saying. The other thing I think we need to talk about is, not tonight, but a whole nother issue that hasn't been brought up is, there is a distinction between remote learning, remote teaching, and remote instruction. And we often talk about them as they're the same, that, we're doing remote learning. No, we're really not. We're doing remote instruction at this point. And it's no fault of anybody's on here. We did this quickly, but I don't think any of us will say what we're truly doing is remote learning. It's tough. So, that being all said, I don't know if there's anyone else who, really has anything burning that they want to do, but I think, I just can't, two things I can't stress enough. Elections matter. Votes matter. We have the ability in November. Yes, you get compensation money from the union. I hate to have to say that, but member benefits is changing some of what they're doing, because that would be, if you contracted it at school, that would be an on-the-job unfortunate death. Gail, you were on there. I think I missed you real quick. Where's Gail?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Hi, Gail. I'm sorry. I had you on my list and I totally forgot. I'm sorry.
All right, it's my life. One of the things I was concerned about as well, I talk with our school nurse on a regular basis because we share her job, you know, I cover when the nurse isn't in the building. So we've been discussing what's that going to look like. And we talked about, no, she has to be full-time. We can't do a part-time nurse anymore, even though we're a small building. But we talked about adaptations to the building that should and need to occur. Does the funding, would funding come from the CARE Act for that? For example, no contact faucets. You know, where you put your hand under and the water automatically comes on and the soap automatically dispenses. I mean, is there funding in the CARE Act for that, or is that something the district would have to think about?
That is a great question. I don't know, but what I can do is I will bring it up to Senator Shaheen's office, because I know she was looking for some more information. And I was talking about not having enough sinks. I wasn't really thinking about the no contact ones. So my personal opinion is that should be federal money. Honestly, I think, you know, especially since the state was cutting back on building aid and everything, I think that should all be federal. So
Right.
I will talk with our United States delegation about that. And I'll also bring it up to our state delegations as well. I can bring it up to Senator Susie and Representative Steve Shirtliff. And I know Brian's on here somewhere, so I hope he's taking these notes for me.
Yep.
You got him?
I just think that
and
we're
you
looking at,
can-
we look at the, all our persons, our people, our
Right.
students, our parents and all that. And then we have to look at the physical capabilities of those buildings. I'm in a very old building, but in the district I'm in, some of the buildings are newer. So it's kind of we're last on the list to get fixed because we're so old, you know, one of those deals. But we're small compared to the whole state. Looking at all the schools doing things consistently, I think is going to be a key to everyone being comfortable at some point going back. You know,
Definitely.
that was just my 2 cents.
What did you want to add in, Brian?
Oh, I was just going to say there is pretty broad authority for school districts to spend money from the CARES Act on COVID-related expenses. So, you know, they can't use it to backfill things that they had already approved, but that's the type of expense that they should be able to utilize CARES Act money for. There's also another larger pot of money that the governor and eventually the legislature is going to be able to divvy up around reopening. You may have seen in the news they're already starting to do this a little bit when it comes to types of assistance for private businesses. And so, you know, can't open a lot of private businesses without schools. And so I think there's money already there that districts should be able to tap into, and certainly resources that we can advocate for.
So I just noticed my screen's kind of red. I don't know if my computer is done with me having meetings today. I don't have a heat lamp on me. If it's coming across red to anyone else, I don't know what is going on right now. I swear it's, I gotta check on my computer. But I just want to end with this, and we're going to get all the Zoom chats. We're going to get them all written up, and we're going to compile everything. But just the two, you know, do you want to say hi? Hi. Kind of the two important things, you know, to get out of this, if nothing else. One, elections matter. Whoever's in the corner office and whoever gets elected in November is going to either keep or get rid of Frank Edelblut, and also the executive committee, because if, you know, our current governor is still there, they can obviously decline his renomination. The other thing is, you know, we are in such a unique time right now. What we do and what we, Mrs. Donovan says hi, Brady. That was his teacher last year. What we do now and the decisions that we make now are going to impact all of us for so many years to come. And I don't know if you've heard the saying, you know, policy and things like that get made during a crisis are really hard to undo later on. We need to make sure we get this right. No pressure, but honestly, I believe in you guys. I believe in the educators in New Hampshire, and I know we're going to do what's best for you and what's best for the children, and that's all we can ask you to do. So please, 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 let me know what you want said if you don't want to say it. I am more than happy to do that. We are going to get this out. We're going to go through this together, and we're going to do what's right for the educators and children of New Hampshire, because I know every single one of you, that's what's first and foremost for you. you wouldn't be in this job if that's what you didn't care about. And I know that to be true for everybody here. So I know we're going to get through this. I thank you for everything you're doing every single day. I can't thank you enough. My own kids, you know, thank you, whether they realize it or not. I mean, I'm in touch with their teachers. This is personal to me, as I know it is to everybody else. But thank you, thank you, thank you for everything you do. And please, anytime you can reach out to me, email, call, whatever. You know, my phone number is pretty widely out there. It's everywhere, I think, at this point. So if you don't have it, you know, email me and I'll give it to you. It's not that big a deal. But thank you so much. We're going to get everything together. You can always get these on the internet, on our website. And, you know, there is a Google form in there for some more feedback and questions if you want. Tuttle Talks are all on there. And hopefully by next week, I'll have the lighting changed so that I'm not looking like I'm on a heat lamp and getting a tan in here, because I promise you I'm not. So, do you want to say, huh? Oh, wait, I have someone trying to. It's a little better, lady. Okay, I have a 9-year-old trying to fix my computer problem, so that's good. So thank you so much. And anytime you need anything, please, please, please let me know. And I will talk to everybody soon. Thank you for joining us, Dawn. And next week we'll see if we have Vice President Becky Pringle with us from National. We'll see. Who knows? So check your emails. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Good night. You don't know what's up.